Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we are hosting a webinar on simulating a thriving food system for all, presented by Better Food Foundation, Climate Interactive, and Plant-Based Treaty. My name is Sam, and I am in Los Angeles. I am a Plant-Based Treaty campaigner, also U.S. liaison. And welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be a quick, simple workshop to talk about our food system and the climate simulator that with Climate Interactive. And, you know, um, I met Julie and from the town hall that Plant-Based Treaty hosted last year in West Hollywood. And as a matter of fact, the reason we had a town hall in West Hollywood, and that got us an endorsement and partnership with West Hollywood. And also, I met Katherine from what another event that Plant-Based Treaty hosted, which is called Food Day. As a result of the partnership with West Hollywood, we had hosted a Food Day event where we talk about plant-based food and how, and we served plant-based food all day to the community of West Hollywood. And so I'm going to pass it on to my co-host, Julie, to talk about how she met all of us. Catherine.
Thank you, Sam. It's so good to see familiar faces in the room. Thank you for joining us this morning in LA. It's super fun to do a webinar with both Sam and Catherine. And as Sam said, we met at a food event, which was always super fun. If you're in Los Angeles, there's a ton of people in Los Angeles. But if you're concerned about sustainability, we all seem to find each other because there's so many events to network at. So it was really fun to meet Sam. And a few years ago, I met Catherine actually at a UCLA event in Culver City. And we just hit it off. I was working as a sustainability lead at another organization, and she's just a wealth of knowledge. I had just started my job, and I was like, "Can I call you if I have any questions or hit any roadblocks?" And she was just a wealth of information and always helped me along my career. So I have her to thank for that. And I want to hear how Catherine, got to know us and why we're here today.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you, Julie. It is a very supportive and wonderful community here of climate and sustainability advocates in Los Angeles. I actually spent the first half of my career working for a big international consulting firm in accounting and tax, so nothing to do with climate. And then, as many people during the pandemic, I was sitting at home during first lockdown thinking, what do I want to do with the rest of my life and my career? And I decided to move into climate work and actually ended up doing a certification at UCLA, and hence my UCLA connection. And then around about that time as well, I became really acutely aware of the contribution of industrial animal agriculture to climate change. So having been vegetarian for many years before that, I actually switched to plant-based diets at that point. And then since then, I've also become acutely aware of the horrible, horrible conditions that industrial farms create for animals. And so for me, it became also an animal welfare issue as well as the climate change issue. And then I also visited the farm sanctuary here outside of LA, and that really solidified my belief that plant-based diets are a critical part of climate change mitigation, I guess. So farm sanctuaries where they rescue animals and give them second life. So that's why I'm here, and that's my journey to date. Sam, how did you get to become a plant-based advocate?
Thank you so much, Catherine. Yes, I am very, very passionate about everything we're going to talk about today. Before I was involved with Plant-Based Treaty, I'm very passionate and dedicated to saving animals, and I really have a big concern for biodiversity. I mean, without animals, we would not have a livable planet. And I was very, very involved with local political clubs, and I really wanted to use politics to help animals. And that's how I discovered Plant-Based Treaty. And so that's why I'm so passionate about it. And
what I'm going to do, we have Climate Interactive has one word in it, interactive. Interactive is the name of the game. So let's get interacting. So before I show you the model, and then we'll explore how plant-based diets are part of the climate change solution to climate change, I would love to run a quick poll to gauge your, I'm just showing my screen, bear with, okay. So you can either follow the link that I've just shared in the chat, or you can scan this QR code with your phone. And by the way, when you get there, you don't have to introduce yourself, just click skip, keep the browser open because we'll run a few more polls. The first question I want to ask you, what are the main sources of greenhouse gas emissions? Where does our pollution come from? Where do emissions come from? And if you have your answer has 2 or more words, just hyphenate them. That's how the software works. So I'm going to activate the poll. Okay. And so please scan this QR code or follow the link in the chat, and we'll explore this exact topic at the beginning of the workshop. So please keep voting. I see one vote. Let's keep voting. 3. Okay, they're coming in. That's great. I'll give you a few more seconds. All right, let's take a look and see what you've said. Agriculture, animal agriculture. Yes, you're in the right place. Food, fossil fuels. Yep. Car pollution. Car pollution, I would say, is an impact rather than the source of emissions. Methane is a product. It's one of the type of emissions. We have carbon dioxide, we have methane. Road transportation, yes. Food systems, waste, definitely. Animal agriculture. Okay, great. Well, that sets us up nicely. Climate Interactive, we're a small nonprofit. We work very closely with MIT Sloan, and we design really, really cool climate models, like the one you're seeing right now. It's called En-ROADS. We then use En-ROADS to engage with policymakers, with their staff, with business leaders, with communities, with advocates, anyone who touches climate and wants to be able to communicate topics of climate change, climate solutions, climate impacts, the need for more ambitious action on climate, use our models to talk to these stakeholders. And essentially what we do is we make complex science easily accessible. I'll show you, I don't have to show you all the model, but believe me, there's thousands of data inputs here. There's thousands of different calculations that are running behind the scenes. And yet when I move a slide, it gives me immediate feedback. So it's really the envy of the modeling world. It works, it runs really, really, really fast. All of our resources are available for free at the point of use. The model runs on a browser. You can access it from a laptop or a tablet. We have free training, we have free webinars, we have videos, we have all the resources that are there and easily and freely accessible to you. So before we go in and explore the model, just in terms of use cases, how do we actually use it? So first of all, is for capacity building. I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, we released a set of impact features in connection with health. So for example, this is a very uncomfortable graph, and I have to acknowledge that. This shows on a global level. So this is a global model. This is not a US model or UK model or California model. So this is a global model because if you think about all these systems that we're talking about, and the model is actually based on system dynamics principles. All the systems that we have, climate, energy is another classic example. A war in one country impacts on who buys fossil fuels from where and the supply chains involved. So energy demand, energy consumption, all of these systems are global, so it's a global model. Look at deaths from extreme heat are rising exponentially globally. And so by the end of the century, 25 deaths per 100,000 people, right? So this is, again, this is a public health crisis that we are engaging now with healthcare professionals to have them understand that this is an issue that they need to be educating themselves on, educating their colleagues on, and then advocating for more capacity in the public health space. You know, our hospitals will need to be prepared for more people coming in suffering from effects of extreme heat. Sam talked about her love of animals and biodiversity. We have different impacts here in connection with species losing their climatic range and extinction level events. So we use En-ROADS to educate both policymakers and those who then implement that policy, and healthcare professionals and conservationists, etc. But the idea here is not to get depressed about the state of the world. The idea here is to model the impact of different solutions. And typically, we start with a poll that goes something like, what do you think is the most effective climate solution to climate change in the shortest possible time frame? And when we run that poll, we get as many answers as the people in the room. Everyone has a different idea. It's all about electric vehicles, or it's all about fusion by Tuesday, or it's all about weaning ourselves off of coal, or it's all about planting trees, right? So everyone has a different idea, and we help legislators and business leaders and pension funds, is another example, to understand where they need to be putting their efforts and their resources and their money. The other thing that we like utilizing En-ROADS for is to stress the need for adaptation, right? It's going to be hot, it's going to be dry. Sea level rise is a problem in many places. So I'll show you the map of California. This is a map showing days of extreme heat. We're starting at the beginning of the century, and then we'll go decade by decade by decade by decade, and it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And these gradations are really, really important. There's a huge difference between us experiencing 1 to 3 months of days above 90 degrees or 32 if you're in Europe, and 3 to 6 months, because you're putting really vulnerable people in the position where they may not be able to cope with that amount of heat. Same with wildfire danger days, right? We think wildfire, we think North America, we think in California, but look, even the UK, I know there's a few of you here from the UK, wildfire is going to be a major problem. Up to 2 additional weeks, 2 extra weeks, 1 to 2 extra weeks of wildfire by the end of the century, right? Almost in every part of the country. So we use it to show these impacts and help local government officials prepare for that future. And then finally, I mentioned also just looking at relative leverage solutions, like, oh, I've got limited capital. Should I plant trees? Should I give my citizens of my city or town an incentive to buy electric vehicles or heat pumps? What should I be doing? You know, what technology holds promise? A lot of conversations right now happening around nuclear seeing a revival. Is it a valid climate solution? Okay, so just orienting you as to what you're looking at, and then we'll have another poll. We'll do some myth busting. What you're looking at is En-ROADS baseline. Okay, a baseline. By the way, also forgot to mention, we've also translated this model into 21 languages, right? So the baseline is the state of the world that takes into account all policies already in place. When I say policies, I mean actual legislation, investments, research and development, deployment, things like deployment of renewable energy, deployment and adoption of, say, electric vehicles. So the state of the world that takes into account all technological, financial, and climate progress today, but then assumes we take no further action on climate between now and then the end of the century. As you can see, all the graphs here are displayed between the year 2000 and 2100. And under this future, we're headed towards 3.3 degrees of warming, which is would be catastrophic. We know that the goals of the Paris Agreement and that every single country in the world has signed up for is to limit warming to 2 degrees and be as close as possible to 1.5. So you can see when we're going to blow past those in the baseline. But this is not the future that we, all of us here, are willing to accept. So we will then simulate the impact of different policies and see what it's actually going to take to get to 2 degrees of warming or 1.5, and then look at how much better we can do on those impacts that I've showed, deaths from extreme heat, drought, wildfire, etc. So the idea here is to build a shared scenario of success that gets us to our shared goals. All right, so we'll come back to this. In the meantime, I'm going to run another poll. Just going to activate it. Question is, percentage of food from animals is decreasing globally. True or false? Okay, I'm going to go to instructions, so you're not seeing each other's responses, so you're not swayed. Percentage of food from animals is decreasing globally. So either click on the link that I put in the chat or scan the QR code. Percentage of food from animals, again, global picture, is decreasing. 9 votes, 10, I think we have quorum. Okay, so some believe that it's true, most believe that it's false. All right, let's go back into En-ROADS and see what the answer is. Now, if I do that, there's one set of graphs that I love showing. I think it's really, really great to build a mental model of what are the biggest drivers of the climate crisis, right? And when I ask that question, and I would like you to think about it, what are the big macro trends that we're seeing? It's not just we're driving cars, we're eating meat, right? It's macro, what's happening? This is what's happening. We have global population that's growing, right? Right now we're at 8 billion people, and it's not going to take that long, believe it or not, 0.84, for us to get to 10 billion people. Now that then, as you can see, it peters out and actually starts reducing again. So some good news, but it's exponential growth right now. So what do people do? People consume. So our GDP per capita, global domestic product, is growing again exponentially. Good news and bad news. Good news, we have people in low and middle income countries that are able to, build their first home and send their child to school and buy their first scooter or car. So that's good news. Bad news, this is my opportunity to make a joke about a celebrity. Katy Perry goes to space for 10 minutes, right? So we have overconsumption in the global north. So GDP per capita is growing. What does it take to produce this GDP? It takes energy, right? Energy intensity of GDP, there's this concept. Now, this is good news. It's falling because we're innovating. We're investing more in research and development. We're becoming more efficient. Also, increasingly more and more of our incomes globally comes from services rather than manufacture of goods. So that's good. And then that energy also has carbon intensity. So what I mean by that is this is a measure of how much renewables we have on the grid vis-a-vis fossil fuels, right? So it's a mix of the two. And carbon intensity is also falling because we have gotten quite good at deploying renewable energy, and particularly solar is so cheap now. So carbon intensity of final energy is falling. So you have people consuming more and more, takes energy to produce, has carbon intensity. CO2 emissions from energy, it's this gray slice here, fossil fuel CO2. So this is a really good graph to see where do emissions actually come from, right? They come from burning of fossil fuels, but we also have this green slice, land use CO2. So this is deforestation, okay, caused by primarily, not entirely, but primarily by animal agriculture, okay, and primarily in places like Amazon, Brazil, and Indonesia. What other impacts do we have? We have refrigerants. Now, this comes from our homes, of course, where it's getting hotter. So people are buying air conditioning units all over the world, but it also comes from having to refrigerate food and that includes obviously animal products as well. And then we have this slice, which is, these three are really challenging. These gases, this is methane in blue, and then this is nitrous oxide. They have really, really high global warming potential. So they're much, much more damaging to our environment than carbon dioxide. They are short-lived. They don't live as long in the atmosphere, but they have much higher global potential. Where does methane come from? We'll take a look in a second. A third of it comes from agriculture. A lot of it comes from animal agriculture. And then we have fertilizer, essentially. That's what it is. Why do we have fertilizers? Obviously to grow crops, but a lot of the crops that we grow are to feed animals. So yes, let's acknowledge that fossil fuels is a huge, and addressing them, a huge part of the solution, but we also have all these different other types of gases and emission sources that are related to animal agriculture as well. And by the way, none of this is decreasing. As you can see, it all is increasing. So let's go back and let's see, let's test your mental model. Percentage of food from animals is increasing. So right now it's about 23%. Again, this is global. And then it's going to increase to about 28%. Why is that the case? Well, we've just showed you the global population is growing. Okay. And then we also said, what else is growing? People's incomes are growing. And what happens when, we know this from experience, what happens when people have more disposable income? What's one of the very, very first things they do? They add more meat to their diet. Okay. So it's a problem. We need to fix it. All right. I'm going to activate another poll. I've kind of given some of the answer away a little bit, maybe. We don't need to reduce meat consumption. As long as we reduce reliance on coal, oil, and gas, climate change is solved. True or false? Can we solve the climate crisis with transition to away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy? True or false? And I know in the ideal world, this is not really a true or false, but you know, for the purpose of the demo and exercise, let's stick with this question. Okay, let's do a couple more people, please. Then we get to 10, and then we'll reveal the results. Hopefully you still have a link in the chat. This is the QR code to scan. All right, 9, come on. Let's, one more person. All right, well, I'm gonna go and reveal. All right, false. 89% say false. If you ever think that that's true, and that's interesting, you know, that's the answer to this is not obvious typically, but with the help of En-ROADS, we can explore this. So first of all, I think it's fair to say it's surprising to many people that fossil fuel production is not decreasing. In fact, it's increasing. And again, this is a global picture. This will be different for your country. Coal, look, it dips in the middle of the century and then it starts increasing again. Oil is doing swimmingly well. I mean, look, I mean, about more than a third, I mean, if I'm looking West 2025, more than a third of our energy comes from oil still, okay? Again, it expands in the middle of the century, then reduces a little bit, but it's not exactly going away. You know, for everyone who says we've reached peak oil, show them this graph. Then gas. I prefer to say methane gas rather than natural gas because that's what it is. No sign of decrease. The good news is that we're adding more and more renewables. So that's definitely happening. And then we also have a bit of bioenergy and we have nuclear as well on top of this bit of blue. So that's where we get our energy from. Let's see what happens if we fully phase out fossil fuels equitably, and slowly and gradually and with a lot of planning. There's actually multiple ways that we can phase out fossil fuels, and you can see it in the model. So for example, we can just make it more expensive to produce. We can stop permitting any new infrastructure. I know that happened in the UK. There did no new coal plants being built. This is a new type of technology, carbon capture and storage. You can incentivize or subsidize carbon capture and storage, essentially so that to make sure that there aren't any emissions in the first place, so they're captured at source. We can reduce utilization, just use less of it, or we can accelerate a plant early. So multiple different ways, but let's just assume we build a very, very ambitious scenario where we taxing coal and making oil really expensive to produce and taking action on natural gas. Sorry, I've just said natural gas when I said methane gas. It's because the model describes natural gas. And then say we put a maximum subsidy to new renewables. And then let's say I'll leave nuclear alone. We also put up a carbon price. Carbon price is another mechanism for us to tax pollution. Let's do that as well. I mean, you can guess for yourself as to what you think is politically feasible. I mean, this is a very, very, very effective intervention, but let's acknowledge the fact that globally, we're still taxing our pollution at $5 per ton. Every ton of CO2 in the atmosphere, we're taxing at $5. In the model, we show that it should be taxed at $6,000. But let's just assume that you are very, very bullish on this and say, we are going to be at $100, our global average. And let's just say also, we help renewable energy adoption by electrifying everything, and energy efficiency goes up a little bit more. This is very, 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 very ambitious scenario. I would say what's probably more likely is something like a $25. Electrification isn't really that high, but let's just take this as an example. This is an example of a super ambitious decarbonization policy or set of policies. It gets us to 2.7 degrees. So what I'm trying to say is we also need the assist from nature-based solutions, okay? And that's planting trees. It is, we'll come back to agriculture, stopping deforestation, really important, reducing waste that we send to landfills, and also agricultural emissions, okay? And we will come back, because this is vegan diets and En-ROADS, plant-based diets and En-ROADS sit under this slider, and we can come back to this and model the impact. Okay, all right, let me zero everything out. Let me show you one final thing. Let's run one final poll, and then I will come back and we'll simulate plant-based diets in En-ROADS. Okay, your last poll. Again, I think I'm preaching to the choir with this audience, but this is a very, very common myth that our model, it helps people to bust. New technology, a lot of optimism around new clean tech, fusion, small modular reactors for nuclear, carbon capture and storage, direct air capture, hydrogen. Los Angeles, where all three of us are, Sam, Julie, and I, we've just opened recently our first hydrogen hub. The state of California is really gung-ho on hydrogen. Does hydrogen have promise? Let's see what you say. You say false. All right. I kind of expected that. Let's go back. So this is actually a very recent release for us. What we typically do when we release new features is we do literature review, and then we consult with brightest minds in the field, and we come into it completely unbiased. It's like, okay, does hydrogen have promise? Right now, it's a tiny, tiny industry. We have a graph on it. And it just shows you that it's almost barely in existence. I mean, it's really small. You really need to compare it, but essentially, mainly right now, hydrogen is used as a feedstock into industrial processes. So you can simulate the impact of what happens if we subsidize new hydrogen storage. So first of all, you can do is storage. Okay, I'm maxing out on storage. The other thing you can do is turn all of our ships and aeroplanes into hydrogen planes and ships, air and water hydrogen deployment, maxing out on that. This is, by the way, costing billions of dollars every year already in terms of subsidies. And then we can do the same for industry, right? Industry and buildings and industry, right? We've just thrown billions of dollars of, I was just showing it to somebody, and if I can find the graph, it's going to cost, bear with me, Total annual cost, which I can't find anywhere, $93 billion it was costing us. And I can't find the graph. I apologize. Let's see. Hydrogen. We have over 180 impacts in En-ROADS, and it is annual cost. Let me try one last time. Annual cost to capture and store carbon. Okay, never mind. It's $93 billion was going to cost. Okay, to give us how much of the benefit? 0.1 of a degree we're shaving off with hydrogen. All right, so for all of the excitement, for everything that I've just showed you, carbon pricing, phasing out fossil fuels, electrification, energy efficiency in buildings, like an intervention that gets forgotten. Something like hydrogen just does not have the intended impact. Okay, why are we here? We're here to talk about plant-based diets and their contribution. So this is where we can go into En-ROADS, click on use detailed settings. And this is what we're trying to minimize for. So we're about a third of methane comes from agriculture, most of it from animal agriculture. Very, very urgent issue that we're trying to solve for. So food from animals. Right now in the model, we are, by default, we're set at 30% of diets by this century. So this is actually a lot of commentators think that will be, just how much of our food will be coming from animals, it's 30%. That seems to be the consensus, scientific consensus. You can draw your own conclusions, whether you think it's realistic without any additional work that's been done by Sam and Julie and advocates in this field. So in the model, you can reduce that down to 10%. Okay, so that gives us 0.1, more than hydrogen does. And let me ask my fellow panelists, what else is happening? So when we reduce food from animals, what else is actually, what else are we helping? Like what else as a result of that is helping us reduce the temperature? Sam, what are we doing when we're reducing the percentage of food from animals?
The transportation of the products and also mileage.
Yes, exactly. We're reducing food miles, right? Because we don't have to transport crops to feed animals, and then animals, we're transporting them to abattoirs and other facilities. So we're improving what we refer to as energy efficiency in transport, but really it's we're reducing food miles. Okay. Julie, what else is happening when we are switching to plant-based diets?
A couple of things. So on food waste, it's the emissions from food waste because we're not having as many animal products in our food waste, which is
yes. Yes, absolutely. We're also reducing food waste. It is actually making a difference. It's just that it's small, you're not noticing it. So we've gone from, was it 3.13 to 3 point. So, and every fraction of a degree matters. So definitely helps us with that. And also it helps us with refrigeration, because there are lots of vegetables and fruits that you don't have to refrigerate, but you absolutely have to refrigerate meat. And one of the biggest sources of F gases, this fluorinated gases, one of the sources is refrigeration and leakage of these F gases. So we're reducing that as well. So altogether, we're looking at potential contribution of about between 0.1 and 0.3 of a degree, which is obviously very significant. And let's just see what that means for deaths from extreme heat. We looked at this metric, this impact. 0.3 of a degree helps us reduce deaths from extreme heat by about 4 people in 100,000. Or let's see what it does to biodiversity. That's probably a more, I guess, more a better way to visualize this. So in the baseline, we're losing up to, I can't even contemplate this, up to 50% of insects will be losing 50% of their climatic range, which is the first step in the sort of extinction process. It's not an extinction event itself, but it's kind of getting close. We're reducing that by 5%. Just 0.3 of a degree helps us save biodiversity. And we can look at a range of other metrics, crop yields, for example. We actually going to be able to grow less. So whilst our crop yields are actually increasing because we're innovating and we're becoming much more efficient at growing food, our crop yields are going to be depressed because of global warming. But again, we're able to reduce these impacts. Let's go back to those maps. and then I'll stop and I'll hand over to Sam. So, you know, the biggest takeaway from this experience is there's not one thing, and it's not fossil, weeding ourselves of fossil fuels. It's not just about renewable energy. It's not hydrogen. It's not just nature-based solutions. We need pretty much every single one. But what's within your power, to the point that Julie was making, that this isn't power we can exercise 3 times a day when we eat, it just shows you we need every single thing, and every solution is important and valid. Some of them are much more impactful than others. Others take longer than others. Let's not get distracted by technologies that haven't even been invented yet and really difficult to scale. We know technologies that work right now and these solutions like plant-based diets, and then you can go back and look how much better people in around, let's take let's do even more ambitious scenario. Let's get us to 1.7, right? And you can see, you can then toggle between the baseline and the current scenario. And here again, between the baseline, there you go. This is the baseline. So under 3.3 degrees warming in the UK, pretty much the entire country is experiencing 1 to 2 weeks of wildfire. Under 1.7, not, right? And so this is actually a very good map to show because of just the sheer contrast. So every fraction of degree matters. There isn't a single solution to climate change. There are some of them that are critical, like clean energy transition, but there are others as well that are complementary and also much quicker to achieve. And I'll now hand over to Sam to share with us how it's actually done practically, and then over to Julie to explain that it's not just good for climate, it's also good for the bottom line as well. So Sam, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Katherine, for sharing the simulator, En-ROAD simulator. Thank you so much. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, great. Yeah, I think everybody can see it. Okay, so thank you so much. Yes, so thank you for sharing the simulator with us. I find that, seeing the visual, having that visual of seeing policy changing temperature is a very effective tool for us plant-based food system advocates to use. And what's great about the model that Katherine presented is that, we can see that even if we use all levers of policies, being aggressive with, legislative policies with renewable energy, electrification, or, fossil fuel, we're still not reaching our goals. So it is very critical and very instrumental for us to rely on nature-based solution. Like Julie was saying, we eat 3 times a day. And why is it called nature-based solution is because we're trying to use solution to stop deforestation, to stop all the deforestation that's going on in our Amazon rainforest. And over 80% of the rainforest right now is being clear cut because of animal agriculture. So the reason why we love working with Katherine is because she's showing us the visuals of policy, and then plant-based treaty is going to be the solution. We are actually the solution. We work with legislators, we work with cities, local municipalities to talk about the importance of using a plant-based food system to fight climate change. So let me give you guys a very, very quick, brief intro to plant-based treaty. We're a global campaign, and we are a worldwide initiative to fight climate change by centering the food system, because as you saw from Katherine's presentation, we're code red for humanity. We're gonna exceed 2 degrees centigrade by 2040. We're not going to reach our goals, and we're under all 3 greenhouse gas emissions are all accelerating. That's methane, CO2, and nitrous oxide. Right now, the current food system is only providing 37% of global protein, 18% of global calories, but yet it's using 83% of the farmland, and it's causing 71% of all global deforestation. If we all switch to a plant-based food system, we would reduce land use by 75%. And then so that's what we would love to talk about with policymakers. And these are the programs that we have at Plant-Based Treaty. We collect endorsements from individuals, businesses, organizations, and also which leads up to our city endorsement. We partner with cities to implement plant-based food initiatives, policies, and then we also have a menu change and public education campaign that we push for. And then, of course, we also go to climate talks, we go to global conferences, COP conferences, United Nations, to urge global leaders to adopt plant-based treaty like they would with the Paris Climate Accord. And then, of course, we have training and capacity building like the webinar we're doing today. And then here's just a real quick snap.
Sorry, Sam, are you sharing your the slides? I don't think we're looking at you right now, which is fantastic, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sharing the screen right now. Do you see the...
I had to double click on the screen.
So I wasn't seeing. Okay, fair enough. No, apparently you were sharing the slides. People are seeing them. I apologize. I was just seeing you.
Okay. Okay. Do you guys see the endorsement page? Oops. Go back up. Okay, cool. Great. Sorry. Yeah, so this is just a quick snapshot of where we're at. We have 45 cities that endorse us, over 244,000 individual endorsements, 1,685 endorsements from organizations, and then over 2,600 business endorsements. So we get a lot of support, and we use this as a backup when we talk to legislators. Look at all the support we have in and momentum we're building in getting more cities to adopt plant-based initiatives. So just give you a quick example, LA County has a food policy where they are reducing the amount of animal products they're buying, and then they're increasing the amount of plant-based food they're buying to the point where they know that this is an effective policy, so they have the chief sustainability office to track, to measure impact. And then, and I was talking about West Hollywood earlier. We partnered with West Hollywood in a public education campaign. So in month of January, they promoted Veganuary, basically an entire month of plant-based eating. They're working with us on, public information. We had our food day, which showcased how delicious plant-based food is and how local policy can help the city be more sustainable and help residents have a sustainable community as well as a healthy community. And then also West Hollywood has a policy where when they have events, it's plant-based by default. And so I'm going to leave here with plant-based by default because I'm going to switch over to pass the mic over to my co-host, Julie, who's going to talk about what exactly is plant-based, what does Better Food Foundation do, and how we can help get more policies and implemented.
Great. Thank you, Sam. If I could share my screen.
Yep. Yeah, you should be able to share.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes, even I.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I just love the presentation, Katherine. Thank you. And Sam, I absolutely love your passion for doing this work. It's really contagious, and I love working with both of you. So thank you. The Better Food Foundation. So our mission is to create sustainable food systems by shifting diets, and we use behavioral science to do that. And we envision a thriving world where plant-based food is the norm. Our work is based on a book called Nudge that was written by Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein. And it's an intervention that gently steers individuals towards a desired action or behavior in a really predictable way without forbidding any options. Nudges are all around us. So businesses have always used nudges to steer people towards profitable behaviors. But increasingly, people are using nudges to promote sustainable and health, nudging for good, which I love. Here's a couple of examples. Automatic enrollment in security settings on your computer or social media. Putting promoted food at eye level on shelves. And then cities offer green power as the default. We have that here in Los Angeles. There's 33 municipalities that offer green power as the default, and it's very successful. If you're interested to learn more, the book is called Nudge. I recommend the 4th edition. And we use this work to shift diets across society in large institutions, from cafeterias to dining halls to restaurants to sports venues across the board. And the success of it is really wonderful. So there, in 2022, 11 New York hospitals switched to serving plant-based food as a default for lunch and dinner. And in 2023, they tracked the results. They now save 59 cents per meal. In 2023, they saved just under $500,000. They have over 90% satisfaction rate from their diners. And this one, which I love, they drop their emissions every year by 36%. And just this year, they announced they're expanding that work to 400 more hospitals. It's with the food service company called Sodexo, and it's been highly successful. The other local story that I really love is Cherry Creek School District. They removed animal ingredients from their district baked goods, which they have an in-house bakery. They substituted milk powder and eggs for the plant-based version. They reduced 22.5 thousand carbon emissions per year. That's equivalent to driving 58,000 miles. And the best part of the story is they saved over $13,000 a year. So behavioral nudges work. Serving plant-based food by default really works, and we've seen that in a number of areas. This work isn't done just by the Better Food Foundation. It's done with a partnership of over 70 nonprofit organizations across the globe. Here's just a top, the ones we could fit on the page, we got them onto the page, but it's really fun to do this work across the board. It works really well with any type of commitments, city ordinances that Plant-Based Treaty works on, commitments to lower emissions by universities and businesses. So we're seeing this work really, really move across society. If you want to learn more, go to our website. We have a whole article called The Research on Nudges, Plant-Based Defaults and How They Work. Highly recommend the article, and I'll post the link in the chat in a minute. And if you want to learn more, we have 2 opportunities. We have a default veg internship program, and applications are open right now for the fall to spring semesters. It's a really fun program. It's where students advocate for plant-based defaults and nudges on their campus dining. Everything from coffee shops to dining halls to events. Really fun work that we do, and we have really good success with the students because the students are the customers of the food that's served. And lastly, if you want to learn more about behavioral science, come and join us for a nudge training. We host them monthly. You can find the information on our website. Again, I'll post that in the chat. The next ones are coming up on September 11th and October 14th. And that's it. I'm going to open it up to questions and answers. And thank you, Katherine and Sam.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie and Katherine. I really enjoy working with both Julie and Katherine. And yes, if you haven't endorsed Plant-Based Treaty, please endorse us. And then also, please join us. I just put in the chat our link to our welcome call. So this work is very rewarding, and it's a solution for us to talk about, to advocate for at cities, universities, with organizations, and So yes, we will have Q&A right now. If you guys have any questions about any of the items that we talked about today, please raise your hand or ask in the chat. We'd be glad to answer them for you.